Welcome to the frontier of modern leadership. In an era where generative artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming the primary architect of information, the traditional role of a business leader is undergoing a seismic shift. This journey is not merely about learning new tools, it is about navigating the profound disruption of human decision-making. We find ourselves at a critical crossroads where the foundational concepts of knowledge work are being rewritten. The integration of AI into our workflows creates a fascinating yet dangerous tension between unprecedented intellectual augmentation and the very real risk of severe cognitive decline. For professional leaders, the central challenge of this decade is no longer just output, it is the intentional maintenance of cognitive autonomy within an increasingly automated environment. Through this course, we will explore the rigorous defense mechanisms needed to protect our most valuable asset, our independent human judgment, grounded in the proven frameworks of cognitive science and ethics. Understanding the true nature of the tools we use is the first step toward mastery. At our core premise, we must recognize that AI models are fundamentally not thinking beings in the human sense. They are sophisticated, probabilistic pattern generators. They operate on mathematical likelihood rather than logical truth or lived experience. This realization leads us to our primary objective, transitioning from passive consumers of generated content to active task stewards. To achieve this, we must develop an unwavering epistemic vigilance, an intellectual wakefulness that allows us to see through the illusion of machine competence. By applying established critical thinking frameworks to machine learning outputs, we can cultivate the cognitive endurance required to lead effectively. Our ultimate goal is to foster an environment where human judgment remains the final arbiter, ensuring that technology serves as a force multiplier for our wisdom rather than a replacement for our effort. To guard ourselves, we must first understand the concept of the stochastic parrot. Large language models calculate the mathematical probability of the next word without a shred of actual semantic comprehension. They are master replicators of historical patterns, yet they lack any grounded understanding of physical reality or underlying logical frameworks. This often leads to persuasion bombing, the formulation of answers with such high linguistic fluency that they effectively mask deep-seated logical flaws. We encounter the competence mirage, where polished, confident language tricks us into assuming a deep systemic expertise that simply isn't there. Compounding this is automation bias, our natural human tendency to trust automated systems over independent verification. By stripping away this veneer of confidence, we can begin to see the output for what it truly is, a mathematical estimate, not a verified fact, requiring a rigorous intervention.
As we lean more heavily on these systems, we encounter the performance paradox. On the surface, immediate gains in task execution speed and productivity are undeniable. However, these metric-driven successes often come at the cost of deep comprehension and retention. When we bypass the cognitive friction required to build lasting mental frameworks, we suffer from schema failure, an inability to develop internal, adaptable models of the subject matter. This creates a dangerous tool dependency, where users perform flawlessly while assisted by AI, but experience a catastrophic drop in capability when the tool is removed. We risk falling for the skill illusion, where we confuse the generative capability of the AI with our own acquired skill. To lead effectively, we must recognize that true mastery is built through struggle, and that over-relying on speed can hollow out the intellectual foundations upon which strategic leadership is built.
This leads us to the very real threat of cognitive atrophy. Just as a physical muscle weakens when it is not used, our mental muscles for complex problem-solving diminish from disuse. We are seeing the rise of metacognitive laziness, a dangerous delegation of effortful thinking tasks to external algorithms and a relinquishing of the responsibility to monitor our own reasoning. Frequent, uncritical use of AI has been shown to correlate negatively with independent analytical capabilities. This results in a state of intellectual dependency, where we lose the ability to navigate complex problems without a digital crutch. Furthermore, we face the risk of mechanized convergence, where our thoughts and outputs become homogenized and statistically average, lacking the unique, uncreative sparks that define true human innovation. Most importantly, this erosion of autonomy diminishes our ability to make sovereign ethical decisions. To protect our professional integrity, we must resist the urge to outsource our judgment. We must commit to the hard work of thinking, ensuring that we remain the primary drivers of our intellectual and ethical lives. This loss of judgment is particularly dangerous when the tools themselves are flawed.
Beyond cognitive health, we must account for the systemic flaws of algorithmic bias and hallucinations. Because AI models are trained on historical data, they often mirror and even amplify human prejudices and systemic inequities. This leads to epistemic injustice, where certain perspectives are marginalized or erased by the algorithm's pursuit of statistical significance. Even more concerning is the phenomenon of fabricated evidence. AI models are known to generate hallucinations, confidently delivering entirely fake citations, non-existent sources, or false statistics. These are plausible falsehoods, incorrect information delivered with the same perfect syntax and structure as accurate truth. The central problem is that these systems currently lack a way to flag their own uncertainty, presenting guesswork as absolute fact. For a business leader, relying on such an output without rigorous verification is a significant liability. We must learn to distinguish between the confidence of the delivery and the accuracy of the content, maintaining a high standard of proof for every claim the machine makes. To address these challenges, we need a structured method for evaluation, such as the Fascioni paradigm.
To effectively evaluate AI outputs, we look to the Fascioni paradigm, a comprehensive framework for critical thinking. It consists of 6 core dimensions: interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, explanation, and self-regulation. We begin with interpretation, where we seek to comprehend and categorize the significance of what the AI has produced. In analysis, we identify the inferential relationships and uncover the hidden assumptions within the argument. Evaluation requires us to assess the credibility of the claims and the logical strength of the generated text. Through inference, we draw our own reasoned conclusions while identifying any missing pieces of information. Explanation ensures that we can justify our final reasoning without simply defaulting to "the AI said so." Finally, the most critical element is self-regulation, the process of consciously monitoring our own biases and critically evaluating our reliance on the tool. This paradigm transforms the user from a passive recipient into a rigorous judge, ensuring that every AI interaction is filtered through a lens of human logic and accountability. Let's look more closely at how we apply the first 2 steps: interpretation and analysis.
Applying interpretation and analysis is like using a funnel to refine raw data into clear thought. The first step is to isolate the core. Strip away the AI's fluent prose to identify the actual foundational message. Once we have the core, we must spot the leap, looking for areas where the AI confuses statistical correlation with actual causation. We then deconstruct the logic, breaking the output into its basic premises to see if they truly lead to the final conclusions. This is also where we hunt for hallucinations, searching for structural gaps or logical leaps that might be hiding fabricated data. By mapping the argument, we can visually understand how the different parts of the AI's suggested strategy connect, revealing any weak points in the chain of reasoning. Finally, we must clarify ambiguity. We should force the AI to define vague terms precisely, rather than allowing it to hide behind generalized, sweeping statements. This process ensures that we aren't just reading the output, but truly understanding its structure and validity before we even consider accepting its recommendations. Once the logic is deconstructed, we move to the next stage: evaluation and inference.
Evaluation and inference are the scales upon which we weigh the AI's value. We must check the source, asking whether the synthesized information is inherently objective or drawn from biased origins. We then measure certainty, gauging how mathematically reliable the AI's conclusion really is based on the available data. It is vital to demand counterpoints,
actively seeking opposing arguments and alternative viewpoints that the AI might have conveniently ignored to create a cohesive but narrow narrative. When it comes to inference, we must project consequences, thinking through the real-world impact and logical fallout of taking the actions the AI recommends. We also need to identify the missing, asking what context or unstated assumption is absent that would fundamentally change the outcome. Finally, we can use the AI to expand horizons by rapidly generating expansive what-if scenarios, which we then prune rigorously with our own human logic. This ensures that we are using the AI to enhance our perspective rather than limit it to a single automated path. The final and most personal stage of this process involves explanation and self-regulation.
Self-regulation is about looking in the mirror and maintaining control over the decision-making process. You must own the decision, being able to justify your final choice to stakeholders completely independently of the AI's influence. This starts with defining criteria clearly, setting benchmarks to evaluate the suggestions before you even see them. If the AI suggests something that conflicts with your expertise, you must resolve the conflict by trusting your human intuition and logical methodology. Crucially, we must monitor confirmation bias, asking ourselves if we are accepting an output simply because it conveniently agrees with our existing beliefs. We must also resist urgency, not letting the speed of the machine rush our judgment or bypass our critical thinking steps. Ultimately, the human in the loop is the most critical safeguard. Your cognitive supervision is the final, non-negotiable step in the entire workflow. By explaining your reasoning to yourself and others, you ensure that the AI remains a tool for your intellect rather than a master of your decisions. To apply these concepts consistently, we can use structured frameworks like the IDEAS model.
The IDEAS framework offers a systematic approach to problem-solving with AI support. It begins with identifying priorities, drafting a precise problem statement manually before ever engaging with an AI interface. Next, we determine information, gathering AI-generated data, but relentlessly filtering it for source quality and objective truth. We then enumerate options, forcing the AI to provide multiple, distinct alternative strategies rather than settling for the first result. This leads to anticipating consequences, where we perform a rigorous pre-mortem on the AI's suggestions to find potential points of failure. We then assess the situation, ranking the options against our core values and specific needs, ensuring we aren't swayed solely by the AI's textual fluency. Finally, we scrutinize the process, reflecting deeply on whether our final choice was truly reasoned or if we were unduly influenced by the AI's authoritative tone. This framework ensures that every step of the process is intentional, keeping the human leader in the driver's seat from the initial problem definition to the final evaluation of the results. Another powerful tool for managing our interaction with AI is the Frisco model for precision prompting. Precision prompting is an art that requires the Frisco model. First, we must focus by defining the exact goal, constraints, and parameters of the task to prevent the AI from wandering or hallucinating. We then demand reason, explicitly asking the AI to provide the underlying evidence and sources for its claims. We check the inference by verifying if the logical transition from that evidence to the final conclusion is structurally sound. We must also ensure the situation is correct, that the output is nuanced and aligned with the unique real-world context of the problem. We strive for clarity by refining the prompt repeatedly until both the human and the model are utilizing completely unambiguous terms. Finally, we take an overview, stepping back to review the total result and ensuring that the macro-level goal was successfully achieved. This model turns prompting into a rigorous investigative process, ensuring that the AI has a clear and limited scope, which significantly reduces the risk of errors and increases the quality of the insights generated. Beyond these frameworks, we need a daily protocol for how we treat the AI as a partner. The AI Partner Protocol establishes the rules of engagement for healthy collaboration. First, we must separate production from validation. Use the AI for the heavy lifting of content generation, but strictly reserve the validation of that content for human judgment.
We should always probe the logic by asking the AI, "Why did you conclude this?" instead of just accepting the what. A critical rule is source first. Read original primary sources thoroughly before ever looking at an AI-generated summary to avoid being anchored by its perspective. We should also steelman opponents, prompting the AI to argue aggressively against our own assumptions to find the weaknesses in our logic. We can use Socratic scaffolding to direct the AI to ask us probing questions instead of delivering direct answers. Finally, we must break the bubble by deliberately seeking out diverse perspectives that challenge the algorithm's tendency toward homogenized output. This protocol ensures that the AI serves as a devil's advocate and an assistant rather than a replacement for our own critical engagement and creative thinking. This brings us to the shift from passive use to task stewardship using the SIFT method. Becoming a task steward means evolving from a creator of content to a strategic, authoritative verifier. We achieve this through the SIFT method. The first step is to stop. Pause your initial emotional reaction before sharing or acting on any AI-generated claim. Then, investigate the origin of the information, looking for inherent bias and the historical context of the primary sources. We must find alternatives, seeking out trusted, independent coverage to corroborate the AI's assertions. Tracing the context involves following quotes and data back to their original documents to ensure they haven't been misrepresented. Finally, we must triangulate data, never relying on a single AI model. Instead, always cross-reference outputs against human-curated databases and multiple different algorithms. This rigorous process ensures that the final product is not just a generated draft, but a verified, accurate, and professional piece of work. As a task steward, your value lies in your ability to vouch for the truth and quality of the information you provide, maintaining your professional standing as a reliable expert. To make this stewardship actionable, we can implement formal AI safeguard checklists. Becoming a task steward means evolving from a creator of content to a strategic, authoritative verifier. We achieve this through the SIFT method. The first step is to stop. Pause your initial emotional reaction before sharing or acting on any AI-generated claim. Then, investigate the origin of the information, looking for inherent bias and the historical context of the primary sources. We must find alternatives, seeking out trusted, independent coverage to corroborate the AI's assertions. Tracing the context involves following quotes and data back to their original documents to ensure they haven't been misrepresented. Finally, we must triangulate data, never relying on a single AI model. Instead, always cross-reference outputs against human-curated databases and multiple different algorithms. This rigorous process ensures that the final product is not just a generated draft, but a verified, accurate, and professional piece of work. As a task steward, your value lies in your ability to vouch for the truth and quality of the information you provide, maintaining your professional standing as a reliable expert. To make this stewardship actionable, we can implement formal AI safeguard checklists.